is another one of my blog posts that I'm just going to read. I'm going to try to keep the introduction as brief as possible. It's not necessarily for this audience. I think it's more geared towards the online audience who might log in out of curiosity, because this is a blog that I wrote in 2012 when I first came out as an atheist, which I'd been basically since I was 19. And then, almost 20 years later, I finally go, I can't keep hiding this anymore. And I created this blog. And the original title of this post was just a challenge. And I hope that'll make sense when I read it. But I changed the title to Jason Daniel in the Lion's Den after the online attack I received from all of my primarily evangelical friends and especially family. So it's not the original title. And I like the fact that my middle name was Daniel. And so it worked as, a biblical allusion. So it starts with two quotes, one from the Bible, one from the Quran. And then I'm just going to read it. Okay. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 13, 49 and 50. The guilty behold the fire and know that they are about to fall therein, and they find no way of escape thence. Quran, Surah 18, verse 53. Hell is a real place for nearly 2/3 of the people on earth. Fear of going there is an actual concern for the majority of citizens in the United States. It is a fear I once held myself, one that kept me immobile and silent for decades. Not anymore. Many of you will be afraid to read this entire post. So let me give my conclusion. Hell is not real, and the fear of hell is keeping you from a life far richer, exciting, and fulfilling than you have dared yourself to imagine. Fear of hell is a psychological illness whose time has come to an end. This is not, whose time has come to end, not to an end. Unfortunately, it's still going. Anyway, this is not an argument for or against the existence of hell, nor an attempt to sway you to a particular belief. It is a challenge to the strength of your faith. It is a brief description of my own journey. That's why the subtitle is a personal testimony. It is a brief description of my own journey and a telling of the rewards I found as a result. Many of the writers and speakers who hold my point of view are angry, vindictive individuals whose words clang in the ears of listeners and readers with rage, resentment, bitterness, and condescension. I'm referring there to the quote unquote new atheists, Daniel Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, those guys. My view, as one who once held the same beliefs as you, is sympathetic and understanding. My goal is to tone down the rhetoric, do away with the insults, and let the ideas speak for themselves. Ideas that can create unity and civil debate, not division and violent factions. Persons who esteem reason do not go out for one another's blood. Only religious fervor can create such division and anger. When I talk negatively about certain fears and beliefs, I am not pointing a finger at anyone but myself. I am not meaning to insult or belittle anyone, but only to describe the person I once was. This post is about where I stand now and how I got here. Now I've got some subtitles, so every once in a while I'll pause and give a subtitle. The fear. I too once lived in fear of hell. I knew of the existence of ideas contrary to my beliefs. I also felt that certain ideas, certain books, and certain people were open doors to the inferno, and I did my best to stay clear of them. Such ideas were snares of the devil, and the people who espoused them were servants of the diabolical one himself. They may have been fooled, but not me. I don't know where this fear of certain ideas originated. Darwinism, an earth that was billion years old, the Big Bang, political liberalism, cultural relativism, tolerance. These were all enemies of God. Both of my parents, though they were believers, never discouraged me against being curious or opening my mind to ideas that were opposed to my faith. I don't recall any one particular person telling me to avoid certain ideas or areas of thought and debate, but it was a conviction I held firmly, and I could not be swayed. It must have been something I read. I believed, as many of you as you do, again, this is written to believers. I believed that the Bible was the only source of knowledge my life required. I needed to look nowhere else. To do so was to risk my soul and court eternal damnation. The problem. It was my goal to become a missionary to Africa. Don't laugh. Now, again, I'm writing this after I've come out, and most people have already realized, all right, this guy, a missionary, no way in hell. So that's the point of the don't laugh. I was going to leave school after the first year of college and join YWAM, Youth with a Mission. My parents convinced me to stay in school, complete my degree, after which I could go to the mission field if such was still my desire. So much for parental guidance. I thank Mom and Dad today for their persistence. Doubtless my life would have been rewarding and full had I gone into missions and kept my devotion to Christ. And clearly, being unaware of the potential that the life had to offer, I wouldn't know the difference. I'm not saying a life of belief in the Bible is not rewarding. It can be. But knowing what I know now, I can't help but be grateful to my parents. If it weren't for their desire to see me get my education, I would not be writing this right now. In college, I was forced to confront the ideas and theories that I had so far managed to avoid. My degree was in psychology. What political science, biology, geology, as well as cultural and physical anthropology had to do with psychology, I had no clue. But these were required courses. I had no choice but to dive in. The hope. Knowing that I must walk through the fire, I hunkered down and resigned myself to fate. At least that's what I call it now, and I'm not even sure that I call it that. I had to endure this particular course of study. After a brief spiritual struggle, I came to the conclusion that this was the path that God had laid before me. My trust was in Him. Every step prior to this I had taken in faith. It was that faith that would see me through. I believed my faith was strong enough and my God big enough to withstand the intellectual assault that God Himself would see me through it. Little did I realize what a crucible that course would turn out to be. The challenge. If I was to do honor to God, I had to open myself to the new ideas and trust Him. A closed-minded approach to the coursework was never in my plans. I came across many individuals who clearly took this route, refusing to hear the professor, arguing every point with scripture, shaking their heads and plugging their ears, sometimes literally. I knew my God was big enough to handle anything some professor could throw at me. It was God who had created my mind, who had enabled these discoveries, and who had permitted the publication of these works. And it was God who had put me in these classes, in the direct path of the storm, so to speak. So I opened my mind to everything: philosophy, psychology, biology, anthropology, mathematics, history, geology, political science, literature, comparative religion, and critical studies of the Old and New Testament. The result. You're looking at the result. With each new class, with each new reading assignment, and with each new lecture, my mind was a whirl with challenges, contradictions, conflicts, doubts, and questions that led to answers that led to only more questions. But through all of this, trumping every scriptural defense I could muster and every fundamentalist conviction I held, ran a thread of reason and logic that I could not deny or overcome. Within less than 2 years, I had become unrecognizable to myself and to those who knew me. Every moral, religious, racial, political, and scientific belief of mine had been challenged, shifted, rearranged, reversed, and forever changed. The reward. While I had lost my belief in God, what I had found was a new vibrancy, delight, and fascination with life and the world that far exceeded that which I had ever previously experienced. No longer could I be satisfied with the simple answers provided by the Bible and with a fundamentalist consciousness. There was a whole new world out there for me to explore, one in which the answers were actually discoverable. I looked on the world with new eyes. For someone with my level of curiosity and the thirst for knowledge, this was like being born again. Again. The world itself ceased to be an evil, quote unquote, fallen place, though a lot of evil still existed, created by humans. It was an evil that had discernible reasons behind it. Human motives, not some guy with a pitchfork and a goatee. The problems of the world were human caused and could therefore be human solved. The call. I had asked myself many questions before taking on the challenges that my college classes were about to offer. Is God big enough? Is my faith strong enough? Am I intelligent enough? Am I brave enough to take this chance? I now ask you the same questions. The amazing and reassuring thing about this challenge is that there are only two possible results. Your faith and your beliefs will stand, strengthened for having been tested. Or you may, like me, accept a reality in a worldview you never suspected existed. You may realize the evil ideas you shunned for years were really a source of good, truth, and beauty. You may even, like me, wish you had taken the challenge sooner. How many years did I spend reveling in a false belief, worshiping an imaginary friend, belittling reason, rejecting science, and viewing my fellow human beings through the cloudy lens of credulity that called itself religion? Bigotry and homophobia disguised as morality, and hard-hearted self-centeredness that called itself conservatism. Again, this is not a finger pointed at anyone for what they currently believe. It is a finger I shamefully point at myself for who I used to be. It is a win-win situation. Either your faith will be strengthened through your investigation, or you'll realize you never needed faith to begin with. What's really out there? The world is so big and so beautiful, and there's so much more to know and experience than most people ever imagine. We can never know everything about existence, but we can certainly know far more than we currently do. We can get to know the evolutionary and psychological reasons behind the motivations of people, to understand why they treat one another as they do, and to find solutions when human actions bring grief to the world. We can get to know the biological basis for sexual orientation and gain an understanding of a whole class of people we previously shunned. We can get to know the sociological and cultural background of different races and reduce, if not eliminate, prejudice. All of this is available to you, hidden behind the curtain of religion. This is my appeal to those of you who are satisfied with your current state and don't want to rock the boat. My God is enough, you say. I'm telling you there's more. I was willing to investigate, to lay my faith on the line. The payoff was far richer than I ever dreamed. Yes, I was happy then, but I'm much happier now. I cannot believe what I almost settled for. Don't let fear be the reason you miss out on all of the hidden wonders of life. Clarification. When I say open your mind to challenging ideas, I mean a serious effort, a good amount of time spent with studies written by professionals and specialists who spend their times working in these fields. Many people say, I've done the research. Now, again, this was written in 2012. Imagine me saying this today after all the internet researchers that are just listening to QAnon. Sorry, that's an aside. Anyway, I've done my research, but they have never actually given significant time to a thorough look into the subject or thoughts. I do not mean simply reading a blog like this or listening to NBC, History Channel, Fox News, Discovery Channel, NPR, or even Animal Planet. I also don't mean, quote unquote, researching a couple of websites that are funded by right-wing or left-wing organizations. These persons, their programs, publications, and their websites are not valid sources of information, nor are emails forwarded to you by like-minded people. Check your sources. Know who's funding the research. Utilize multiple sources and correlate the information from all of them before making your decision. Take the time, really do the research. And when you're done, if your faith and beliefs still stand, then so be it. You can be so much more knowledgeable and informed and still look forward to a blessed eternity. The concerns. You may ask yourself, what about the uncertainty that I'll have in my life if I think there is no devil that's fighting against me? What happens when God is no longer there to look out for me or guide me or giving my life meaning? The uncertainty remains, as do the troubles, but at least you know it is fate and chance that you're dealing with and not some imaginary enemy. At least you know then that the answers can be found in yourself and in your fellow human beings. That may not sound very reassuring from where you stand now, but from where I stand, it's a psychological and spiritual load off my shoulders. I can hear a big question because I once used it myself. I know how this game is played. You may think I am a tool of the devil, being used to deceive you into thinking that he does not exist, that hell is not real, eternal punishment awaiting unbelievers. And if you believe what I'm saying and you take a chance on what I'm telling you, the devil wins, you lose. None of this is to say that the investigation will result in a loss of faith. I can attest to several friends who have opened their minds to challenging ideas whose faith was strengthened in the effort. Loss of faith is not a guarantee. Maybe your faith is stronger than mine was. Maybe I was the weak one, the one who has been deceived. But at least I dared. At least I used the mind God gave me. I put God in quotes. At least I used the mind God gave me and honored him in doing so. If you are satisfied with where you stand, then stay there. Don't challenge yourself. If complacency suits you well, fine. If, however, you are daring, firm in your faith, just a little bit curious, then take the risk. It can't hurt. You may believe we have eternity before us, and you already know all you need to know about the world. I'm telling you, our time is short, and there's a much bigger world to discover. So many believers in many religions refuse to, quote, enter the lion's den, quote, for fear of being eaten. Where's your faith? For Daniel, the Lord kept him safe, and the lions slept. Others get eaten. Some become lions themselves. Thank you.